Arthur Morgan's interactions with law enforcement in Red Dead Redemption 2 are a fascinating lens into the game's portrayal of morality, choice, and the tension between outlaws and civilization. One of the less often discussed figures in this context is Sheriff Gray, who operates in the area surrounding Rhodes. Unlike the major antagonists or law figures like Angelo Bronte or the Pinkertons, Sheriff Gray represents the small-town lawman. Official authority, constrained by local politics, yet still capable of enforcing the law when provoked. From the moment Arthur enters Rhodes or its surrounding areas, his reputation and the gang's presence influence how Sheriff Gray reacts. If Arthur has accrued high honor, Gray is somewhat reluctant to act aggressively, keeping a wary eye on the Von der Linde gang's movements. Conversely, if Arthur has a low honor level or has committed crimes in the county, Gray will actively pursue him, leading to tense encounters that can escalate into shootouts. This subtle dynamic demonstrates Rockstar's attention to player agency. The same character, Sheriff Gray, behaves very differently depending on Arthur's actions and moral decisions. One of the more interesting interactions occurs during the mission, A Fine Night of Debauchery, where the player must navigate the tension between the gang's heist activities and the watchful eyes of local law enforcement. While Gray is not the central antagonist here, his presence adds an extra layer of realism. Players feel the pressure of a living, reactive world. If Arthur lingers too long in town with a high bounty or causes too much commotion, Gray and his deputies will attempt to intervene, forcing the player to either fight, flee, or find a non-violent way out. These encounters reinforce the game's persistent theme of consequences. Actions in the world carry weight, sometimes in ways that aren't immediately obvious. Another layer worth examining is how Arthur's personal growth and the narrative arcs influence these law enforcement interactions. Early in the game, Arthur might see Gray as just another obstacle in the path of his outlaw lifestyle. However, as the story progresses, particularly during the epiphany moments of the game where Arthur begins reflecting on his choices, encounters with Gray carry additional narrative weight. A confrontation with a sheriff or lawman isn't just a gameplay mechanic. It's a subtle mirror to Arthur's internal conflict between his loyalty to Dutch and his desire for redemption. Every choice Arthur makes, from sparing enemies to helping townsfolk, colors these encounters and can even affect the likelihood of Gray escalating a situation. Moreover, Sheriff Gray embodies the subtle realism Rockstar instills in the world. He doesn't pursue Arthur relentlessly like a scripted villain. He reacts naturally to crimes, bounties, and disturbances. If the player lays low after a misdeed, Gray might never confront them again. This design choice adds depth, showing how law enforcement in RDR2 is both procedural and reactive, rather than just a narrative obstacle. It's a fascinating contrast to other law figures like agents from the Pinkerton Detective Agency, whose presence is more narrative-driven and relentless. Gray operates on the frontier's unpredictable moral code. Sometimes fair, sometimes obstructed by political influence, and always human. Ultimately, the interplay between Arthur Morgan and Sheriff Gray highlights the game's central themes: choice, consequence, and moral ambiguity. Even minor characters like Gray can influence gameplay, story immersion,